So the current situation that we find ourselves in is one of a significant amount of uncertainty. I think that there are some things that we are seeing in the industry. One is that although the curve is flattening nicely, there is no reason to believe that we are in any way immune to this and that we are somehow going to escape what we have seen happen in other areas. And I think that many of the things that the government have done have been very, very successful in flattening the curve. But with the flattening of the curve means an extending of the time frame over which this pandemic plays out, which means that we are still likely to see significantly higher infection rates going forward on the one hand, and on the other hand, we are likely to see this continue for an extended period of time. I believe that even in our own business, many of the interventions are still focusing on the very short-dated stuff, but we still have a winter season to go through, and we believe that the disruption that we're going to see to the economy, to the work environments, and to people's lives and liberties are going to be extended far longer than what people believe is the case right now. So what does that then mean for practical implications in terms of insurance policies? I think that because so much of the information is still up in the air, we are not entirely sure what it means right now. But there are some things that are starting to become clear to us. One is that if you have an existing life insurance policy, most life insurance policies, certainly our life insurance policies, cannot change the terms and conditions of those policies after the point at which they were taken out. Which means that if you have a life insurance policy now and you are comfortable with the conditions that are associated with that life insurance policy, the idea would be to make sure that you continue paying your premiums and that you continue keeping that policy in force. It is highly likely that given the spread of the virus, as well as the severity that we're seeing, particularly in older ages, that there could come a time when insurers start looking at additional underwriting requirements at the point of buying a policy, which could mean that some terms and conditions change should you want to rebuy that policy at a later point in time. And then the other issue is that because we're still not sure exactly what the mortality rates look like or what the long-term damage is for people that have a significant exposure to the coronavirus, there could in time be additional requirements that are placed or additional exclusions that are placed on people that have suffered from the coronavirus in a very severe way. We don't know how it will affect you in the longer term, but it is reasonable to assume that given what we've seen around the world, that there could be some lasting damage physiologically to people over the longer term. So my advice to people would be, if you're happy with your policy right now, make sure that you continue paying your premiums. Right now, life insurance is a very, very important thing to have. We also know that in many instances, companies are taking a very prudent approach to writing new business, where most of the medical staff are actually being applied to the fighting of the virus as opposed to doing things like medicals for new business. And as such, the ability to be able to get life insurance going forward may become impacted. We're not entirely sure of that right now, but certainly we are seeing that face-to-face advice and communication and selling is becoming impacted. Our ability to be able to reach all of our clients was certainly impacted in the early phases of the lockdown. And so it's reasonable to assume that these things will become slightly more difficult to get in the short term, and until such time that we see an easing of the load on the medical fraternity. In terms of claims, anybody who gets the coronavirus or who should pass away from a coronavirus, where they have an existing policy in force, should have no issues with that. Most of the life insurance companies have pandemic reserves, so there should be enough reserves to cover for an increase in the mortality rates. And nobody should have any element of exclusion for the coronavirus, assuming that you have an in-force policy now. Buying a policy now, you should probably be quite clear on whether there are any exclusions that are introduced on that specifically. And we are, as I said, seeing some insurers just starting to screen out people that could potentially be exposed to the coronavirus or have a coronavirus currently. We do ask that question now, where somebody is currently infected with a coronavirus. We might even look to defer cover on that for a month or two, just until we understand what the situation is. So these are very practical issues that you will need to have a look at when assessing whether your current policy is sufficient for you or whether you need additional cover over this period of time. Be very careful when managing your finances, because we do see that people will from time to time return their premiums, and that could certainly be seen as an expression of intent to actually cancel the policy. And if you do have to claim after that, it could place your cover in jeopardy. So rather approach your insurance company and see whether there is something that can be done in order to assist you over this period of time with making sure that you can keep your cover in place, but somehow manage your ability to be able to pay your premiums better, and in so doing suit your budget requirements more efficiently.